Q22. Is it appropriate for Christians to celebrate or observe holidays that have pagan origins, such as Christmas, Easter, Halloween, etc.? First of all, it must be noted that none of these holidays were even mentioned in the Bible, and there is no indication at all that any Christian holidays even existed in the early 1st century, other than Jewish Christians observing their traditional holidays under Mosaic law as a matter of Jewish tradition, just as Jesus did while on earth. Only observance Jesus told his disciples to observe in remembrance of him was the Last Supper. He took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body which is given for you. Do this in memory of me." Luke 22:19. Therefore, it is clear that those holidays were never observed by early 1st century true Christians, and they were established as holidays much later. The earliest recorded Easter holiday observance for Jesus' resurrection was from the 2nd century CE, when sectarianism started to proliferate on various theological issues. Christmas was established as Roman Catholic holiday for the birth of Jesus Christ after Christianity was established as Roman national religion in the 4th century CE by Emperor Constantine. Halloween was established as Roman Catholic holiday to celebrate All Saints' Day in the 11th century CE. Now, let's consider historical aspects of these holidays which will reveal their true origins. Regarding the Easter holiday, History.com states, Saint Bede the Venerable, the 6th century author of Historia Ecclesiastica Gentis Anglorum, Ecclesiastical History of the English People, maintains that the English word Easter comes from Eostre, or Eostre, the Anglo-Saxon goddess of spring and fertility. Other historians maintain the Easter derives from in albus, a Latin phrase that's plural for alba, or dawn, that became Eostarum in Old High German, a precursor to the English language of today. Despite its significance as a Christian holy day, many of the traditions and symbols that play a key role in Easter observances actually have roots in pagan celebrations, particularly the pagan goddess Eostre, and in the Jewish holiday of Passover. Irrespective of denomination, there are many Easter-time traditions with roots that can be traced to non-Christian and even pagan or non-religious celebrations. Many non-Christians choose to observe these traditions while essentially ignoring the religious aspects of the celebration. Examples of non-religious Easter traditions include Easter eggs and related games such as egg rolling and egg decorating. It's believed that eggs represented fertility and birth in certain pagan traditions that predate Christianity. Egg decorating may have become part of the Easter celebration in a nod to the religious significance of Easter, that is, Jesus' resurrection or rebirth. As cited, it is clear that Easter holiday has pagan origin. Regarding Christmas, History.com states, in the early years of Christianity, Easter was the main holiday. The birth of Jesus was not celebrated. In the 4th century, church officials decided to institute the birth of Jesus as a holiday. Unfortunately, the Bible does not mention date for his birth, a fact Puritans later pointed out in order to deny the legitimacy of the celebration. Although some evidence suggests that his birth may have occurred in the spring, why would shepherds be herding in the middle of winter? Pope Julius I chose December 25th. It is commonly believed that the Church chose this date in an effort to adopt and absorb the traditions of the pagan Saturnalia festival. First called the Feast of the Nativity, the custom spread to Egypt by 432 and to England by the end of the 6th century. By holding Christmas at the same time as traditional winter solstice festivals, church leaders increased the chances that Christmas would be popularly embraced, but gave up the ability to dictate how it was celebrated. In Rome, where winters were not as harsh as those in the far north, Saturnalia, a holiday in honor of Saturn, the god of agriculture, was celebrated. Beginning in the week leading up to the winter solstice and continuing for a full month, Saturnalia was a hedonistic time, when food and drink were plentiful and the normal Roman social order was turned upside down. For a month, enslaved people were given temporary freedom and treated as equals. Business and schools were closed so that everyone could participate in the holiday's festivities. Also, around the time of the winter solstice, Romans observed Juvenalia, a feast honoring the children of Rome. In addition, members of the upper classes often celebrated the birthday of Mithra, the god of the unconquerable sun, on December 25th. It was believed that Mithra, an infant god, was born of a rock. For some Romans, Mithra's birthday was the most sacred day of the year. As cited, it is clear that Christmas has pagan origin. It is also noteworthy that December 25th was chosen as Jesus' birthday to coincide with the birthday of sun god Mithra, despite the fact that Jesus' birth could not have occurred in the wintertime. Regarding Halloween, History.com states, by 43 AD, the Roman Empire had conquered the majority of Celtic territory. In the course of the 400 years that they ruled the Celtic lands, 2 festivals of Roman origin were combined with the traditional Celtic celebration of Samhain. The first was Feralia, a day in late October when the Romans traditionally commemorated the passing of the dead. The second was a day to honor Pomona, the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. The symbol of Pomona is the apple, and the incorporation of this celebration into Samhain probably explains the tradition of bobbing for apples that is practiced today on Halloween. On May 13, 609 AD, Pope Boniface IV dedicated the Pantheon in Rome in honor of all Christian martyrs, and the Catholic feast of All Martyrs' Day was established in the Western Church. Pope Gregory II later expanded the festival to include all saints as well as all martyrs, and moved the observance from May 13 to November 1st. By the 9th century, the influence of Christianity had spread into Celtic lands, where it gradually blended with and supplanted older Celtic rites. In 1000 AD, the Church made November 2nd All Souls' Day, a day to honor the dead. It's widely believed today that the Church was attempting to replace the Celtic Festival of the Dead with a related church-sanctioned holiday. All Souls' Day was celebrated similarly to Samhain, with big bonfires, parades, and dressing up in costumes as saints, angels, and devils. The All Saints' Day celebration was also called All Hallows, or All Hallowmas, from Middle English Al-Holo Messe, meaning All Saints' Day, and the night before it, the traditional night of Samhain in the Celtic religion, began to be called All Hallows' Eve, and eventually Halloween. As cited, it is clear that Halloween has pagan origin. It is interesting to note that, in all cases, the ways these holidays are celebrated today have striking similarities to the ways they were celebrated as pagan holidays in ancient times. These similarities are manifested in the objects, costumes, gifts, and practices used in today's celebration of these holidays. Basically, these holidays, which originated from worship of pagan gods, are being celebrated by Christians and non-Christians alike in the same way they were celebrated in paganic ancient times. Knowing this, should Christians be involved in the celebration of these holidays? How would God view his worshippers blending in with pagan practices that originate from demonic god worship? Let's find out. After the exodus from Egypt, Israelites were to inherit the promised land in Canaan. However, God warned them against imitating or following the customs of the native inhabitants, as many of their practices were demonic, immoral, or evil. This is reflected in the laws given to Moses, and this is what God said to Moses as he was giving him detailed law codes, which are commonly referred as Mosaic law. You shall not walk in the customs of the nation, which I am casting out before you, for they did all these things, and therefore I abhorred them. Leviticus 20:23. You shall not do as they do in the land of Egypt, where you lived. You shall not do as they do in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. You shall not follow their statutes. Leviticus 18:3. In these excerpts, it is very clear that God was concerned about Israelites contaminating themselves with the customs of native Egyptians and Canaanites, which are largely associated with their pagan god worship. This is clearly reflected in the following excerpt. Moreover, you shall tell the children of Israel, any one of the children of Israel, or of the strangers who live as foreigners in Israel, who gives any of his offspring to Molech, shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone that person with stones. Leviticus 22. Molech was a pagan idol god to which inhabitants of Canaan sacrificed their children to. Over the millennia, worship of various pagan gods and idols dominated the customs of all Gentile races, without exception, and these pagan customs and beliefs found their way into so-called Christianity and fused themselves together. This fusion occurred most profoundly when Roman Catholic was established as Roman national religion by Emperor Constantine in the 4th century CE, as a means to strengthen the unification of his vast empire, which culminated in blending of pagan practices and beliefs of Romans, Celtics, Anglo-Saxons, etc. with Christianity, which was already suffering divisive sectarianism and lost the unified oneness Jesus mentioned in John 17:22-23. The glory which you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I in them, and you in me, that they may be perfected into one. Eventually, even Protestants, which is largely a Reformed Catholic religion, inherited some of the aspects of Catholic in their religious practices and beliefs. This is reflected in their continuation of celebration of Catholic holidays that originate from paganism, as well as Catholic beliefs in Trinity and afterlife doctrines, all of which stem from pagan beliefs and not scripturally justifiable as previously discussed. Would God who, since long ago, forbade Israelites from following the customs of pagan Gentiles approve today of his people celebrating the holidays originally meant for pagan gods? Let's see what the Bible says. He cried with a mighty voice, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, and she has become a habitation of demons, a prison of every unclean spirit, and a prison of every unclean and hated bird. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her sexual immorality, the kings of the earth committed sexual immorality with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from the abundance of her luxury. I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that you have no participation in her sins, and that you don't receive of her plagues, for her sins have reached to the sky, and God has remembered her iniquities. Revelation 18:2-5. In her was found the blood of prophets and of saints, and of all who have been slain on the earth. Revelation 18:24. Here, it depicts Babylon the Great as a rich city inhabited by demons and every unclean spirit, and also as a woman having immoral relations with all the nations of the world and being responsible for the blood of prophets and of saints and all who have been slain on the earth. From this, Babylon the Great seems to be an entity having very close relationship with the rulers of all the nations and persecuting and killing God's people. The fact that it is described as being inhabited by demons gives a strong clue that it may represent worldwide religious system that includes all religions that worship demons directly or indirectly. Indeed, throughout human history, and to this day, most religions have had close ties with politicians. Who persecuted and killed Jesus and his followers in the 1st century? It was the Judaic religious leaders, the Sadducees, Pharisees, and the scribes, with help of Roman rulers. The same may happen again in the last days, but this time, in global scale, by worldwide demonic religious system, with help of global political system. What does God say to his people regarding Babylon the Great? Come out of her, my people, that you have no participation in her sins, and that you don't receive of her plagues. Revelation 18:4. From this, it is clear that God does not want his people to have anything to do with things tainted with demonic worship, just as he forbade ancient Israelites from following the customs of demon-worshipping Gentiles. Therefore, it follows that all who strive to be true, untainted Christians should keep themselves holy by shunning all religious practices that originate from pagan worship.